Meg here. Hi, Meg here. Hi, Meg here. Blah, 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 blah. Today I wanted to put together this tutorial. Today. I did that thing again. It's really loud on the camera. I wanted to put together this tutorial today to just give you an introduction to the right kind of consistency that you want your buttercream icing to have. You might have your own recipe that you want to go to, or a different flavor that's not just vanilla. This is not a tutorial to teach you how to make this particular flavor of icing, because all buttercream or butter-based icings have a similar consistency by the time they're finished, or should have that, if you want to be able to use it to frost the cake or do basic pipework techniques. I could keep this kitchen the same temperature. Here, there's the Icing guy again. I mean, I make this icing constantly all year long. And it behaves very differently depending on the season. Now, I could keep our home the same internal temperature all year long, and the icing would still behave differently in the summer than it does in the winter. It's a lot more cooperative in the winter. You're mostly having to do with the humidity outside that affects it indoors, despite your best efforts. So you have to be flexible in the way that you put your icing together, and it might mean going off book from the recipe a little bit and increasing or decreasing certain measurements, especially of your sugar that's going to go in and your liquid. Stand mixer is going to be your friend. It's my go-to. I would recommend maybe only using a hand mixer if you're going to do a half batch or a quarter batch. All of your icings are going to start out with some kind of a base. In my case, it's butter and shortening for this particular icing. Maybe you cannot have butter, so you need to use a butter substitute of some kind. Either way, your goal is to get those base ingredients into the bowl and get them well combined. Turn this baby on. So at this point you can see I've combined my shortening and my butter really well, and it's pretty soft. If I tap it, it's going to come right off. It kind of has the consistency of really soft butter. At this point in the game is typically when you're going to add your flavoring agents. For me, it's going to be vanilla and salt. You may use mint depending on your icing. Your icing recipe may call for lemon. Whatever kind of extract you use is going to be up to you. When you're doing icing for decorating, I have heard that people will use a basically a colorless vanilla extract. You can get it at a craft store or some grocery stores, and that is going to give you a vanilla flavor without any additional color, which might be good if you want a really ultra pure white frosting. I find I like the flavor of the pure vanilla extract, and that it doesn't affect the icing enough for me to warrant going to that unless I really, really want a pure white. Okay, so we get those in and we combine them. Okay, so you have your lovely vanilla or lemon or minty buttery mixture here, and now it's time to work on the consistency of your icing. So that is where your sugar and your milk, or in this case evaporated milk, or your water, or whatever liquid it's going to call for, is going to come into play. My recipe calls for adding sugar and the milk alternately. It also calls for half a cup of the evaporated milk. What I have found is that if you kind of go into robot mode and put in some sugar and then some milk and then some sugar and then some milk, and you don't pay attention to the consistency of your icing and how it's developing as you go, that you could end up with soup by the end because you may over add milk. Remember I said the temperature outside can affect what's going on inside, and right now it's late July. So it's really easy to over add milk and get icing that's too soft. So I tend to go heavier on the sugar this time of year in the beginning and not start introducing evaporated milk until I have a more stable consistency of icing. And then I start adding it in little bits and little bits to help balance out the flavor and then to allow me to continue to add more sugar. So I use a dry measuring cup for my sugar. I'm going to dump in my first cup, and here we go. I have to turn off this mixer to get the sugar off the sides, but even with that, it still mixes faster than my last one, so go figure. I'm mixing it at like low, medium speed, 4, sometimes upping it to a 6 as it gets to be more and more icing. So this particular recipe calls for 6 cups of icing, and we are about 2 cups in, and as you can see, we are nowhere near ready for spreading or piping yet. It's way too soft. So I'm going to add another cup, and that'll put me about halfway there, and then I'll start introducing some evaporated milk. Alright, so I've added about half the sugar that this calls for, although I'll probably end up adding more because it is hot out today. So I'm going to start introducing a little bit, just a couple little splashes of the evaporated milk. And now after each cup that I add, I try to only add about a cup of confectioner sugar at a time. I'll add a little bit more until I get to the full amount of sugar, and then we'll see if I just need to add more sugar. If I have to add more sugar, I'll add a little more salt to help balance out the flavor. Start it slow or it'll spit sugar at you. That's not good. We're really starting to see, let me get my lighting correct, there we go. We're really starting to see a difference in this now. It's getting to be a little bit more stable, more firm. What's the word? Stiff. That's what I want. It's getting to be a little stiffer than it was. It's coming together, really holding a shape if you pick it up a certain way. But it's still not exactly what I want for the cake that we're going to be making, so I want to add the rest of the sugar that the recipe calls for, and then I'll double check it again. We are all finished. I did end up adding 1 additional cup of sugar, so to balance that out I added another splash of evaporated milk and a little pinch of salt. And now I think we have the consistency that we want. I'm going to put my knife in here just to show you. When I pick it up, as you can see, that's not going anywhere. I can hold it upside down, I can shake it, it's going to stay where it is. You want the icing to be soft enough that it can go through a piping bag, but not so loose that it's going to melt the second it touches the cake. You want it to be firm enough that you can spread it on a cake without having it slide off the side, but not so firm that it's hard to spread. And that was way too much on a knife, but it's good. So all in all, I ended up using about 1 or 2 tablespoons of the evaporated milk. The original recipe called for a half a cup, so you can imagine how loosey-goosey it would have been if I had gone whole hog with the milk. I did go a cup over with the sugar, and I went over with the salt, but I didn't keep track of how much I went over. Not a lot. A couple extra pinches here and there just for flavor. So try it out. Do a test run or 2 before you get ready to do your cake or take your class. And if you have any questions, you can email me at megdoescakes@gmail.com. And thank you so much for watching, and good luck. Have fun.